Welcome to Rexposed, where the darkest secrets and the craziest drama from Reddit are uncovered. And the story I'm about to tell you comes from our prorevenge, fired from my job, but received a year's worth of pay and got my boss fired. This story takes place in the early 2010s, when video content on YouTube was still an untapped market. I was hired by a university to build its brand on the platform. The job sounded exciting, but the salary was ridiculously low, $2,000 to $100 a month, and I had to handle all aspects of production without any support. On my second day, my boss, a person completely clueless about video production, set a KPI, 85 videos in 52 weeks. I was expected to write scripts, film, edit, produce music, and even use my own equipment because theirs was outdated. I tried to explain that this goal was unrealistic, but she just smiled and told me to give it a try. At first, she treated me fairly well, but when she found out I smoked, her attitude completely changed. Suddenly, I was scrutinized for everything: the smell of smoke, my lunch breaks, even being a few minutes late despite working for extra hours daily. The work environment became suffocating, and I knew my termination was inevitable. Sure enough, after 5 months, I was called into the director's office. My boss sat there with a regretful look while the director declared that I had failed to meet the KPI. I tried to explain that I had been working myself to exhaustion, but they ignored me. My boss confidently stated that they would hire a professional producer to get the job done. I immediately saw an opportunity for payback. Since I was the only one with access to the production company database, I edited all the contact information, leaving only a company owned by my friend. Then I contacted him and devised a plan. He would secure the university contract while I secretly guided him on pricing and how to negotiate with the director. The plan worked better than expected. The university signed a deal with my friend's company, but the cost of meeting the KPI was astronomical, over 10 times the original budget. They completed 50 videos in 4 months, but the expenses far exceeded what the university could afford. The result: my former boss was fired for overspending without the director's approval. The director was harshly criticized by the university president, and me? I received a 15% commission from the contract, equivalent to 15 months' salary. I used that money to travel and continue my education at a prestigious film school. I think this is a smart and dramatic revenge story. The main character turns injustice into an opportunity, flipping the situation in an impressive way. Although the actions are somewhat sly, the outcome is extremely satisfying. What about you? Leave your comment below the video. Next will be a story about deliberately deplete my prepaid phone balance. You will pay for it 1,000 times over. When I was in middle school in the early 2010s, I got my first phone, a sliding phone with a prepaid plan that charged 10 cents per minute for calls and texts, and a hefty 25 cents per photo. My parents gave me only $100 a year to use, so I had to be extremely frugal. Fortunately, my friends understood this. They would call and hang up so I could call back using a landline, or they would message me on Skype to save me money. Everything was fine until Derek showed up. At first, Derek seemed funny, but over time, he became a nuisance, constantly stirring up drama and trying to divide the group. The worst part was that he had zero regard for my phone situation. Even though I made it clear that sending pictures was expensive, Derek kept spamming me with meaningless memes. When I asked him to stop, he just laughed at me. Then one day, for some ridiculous reason, Derek decided to get back at me by spamming me with over 100 pictures. The result: my phone balance was completely drained, wiping out my last $40. Furious, I demanded that he pay me back, but Derek just shrugged and said, "Not my problem." I went home, fuming, and told my dad. I expected him to stand up for me and make things right, but instead, he simply said, "Not worth it, son." However, he still took me to the service provider, topped up my account with $50, and insisted on changing my number, even forcing them to block Derek's number, despite their claims that they couldn't. My dad didn't leave until they made it happen. Not long after, Derek was shunned by the entire group for his antics, and by the next year, he had to transfer schools. Fast forward a few years, I had just graduated from college and was back in my hometown for a while before starting my new job. One Saturday morning, I was strolling through a flea market when I suddenly stopped in front of a familiar house, Derek's house. His mom was selling a bunch of random stuff on the lawn. As I picked up some Pokemon napkins, she complained about how Derek had been obsessed with Pokemon his whole life and how she was tired of all of his junk. I feigned interest and asked if she had anything else. She thought for a moment, then mentioned some boxes in the attic and invited me inside. My heart pounded as she asked me to help bring the boxes down. This was the moment I had been waiting for. I knew Derek had treasured his Pokemon collection, games, cards, even Lego Star Wars sets, all kept in pristine condition. He once screamed at me just for touching one of his game cases. But now, everything was right in front of me, and his mom had no idea how valuable it all was. We opened the boxes, and I nearly gasped at the sight of a treasure trove of dozens of boxed Pokemon games, stacks of trading card binders, old Nintendo consoles, and rare Lego sets. Keeping my face neutral, I asked for the price. She thought for a bit and said, $100 per box, or for $100 for all 5. I almost couldn't believe my ears. I immediately agreed, rushed to withdraw the money, and loaded everything into my car before she had a chance to change her mind. Back home, I asked my uncle, an experienced eBay seller, to help me appraise the items. As we went through them one by one, the total estimated value of the haul came to around $40,000. I nearly burst out laughing. $40,000, exactly 1,000 times the amount Derek had stolen from me all those years ago. My uncle spent the summer selling everything piece by piece. By the end of the season, he handed me a check big enough to pay off the remainder of my student loans, with even enough left over for a down payment on a new car. So I got back 1,000 times the money Derek had taken from me. Sweet revenge, is it? In my opinion, this is a perfectly fitting and incredibly satisfying revenge. Derek once dismissed the small amount of money he made you lose, but in the end, his mother's carelessness helped you get back 1,000 times that amount. The patience and unexpected twist make this story a perfect lesson in karma. Truly, karma may be slow, but it never misses. Finally, there will be a story about a lawyer's pro-revenge on his boss. My boss was a terrible person. Not the kind of terrible that you could laugh off, but the kind that made you want to smash your keyboard every day. He had been a lawyer for 3 years, but in reality, he had no competence whatsoever. His writing was poor. He lacked knowledge of the law, and worst of all, he was visibly terrified every time he stepped into a courtroom. I was a young lawyer just starting out, and the firm assigned me to him for training, but the only thing he taught me was how to steal credit for other people's work. Every time I completed a memo or a legal research paper, he would erase my name from the document and submit it to the partners as if it were his own. I had reported this to my superiors multiple times, but the only response I received was, "You need to work harder or smarter." I decided to choose the second option. Christmas was approaching. While everyone else was busy planning their holidays, I was busy executing my own plan, a plan that my boss would never forget. On the morning of December 24th, a legal memo appeared on his desk. It seemed to be from a senior partner, someone who never used email and only worked with paper documents. The memo contained a complex legal research assignment on maritime law, a field filled with archaic and convoluted terminology. Knowing his nature, I wasn't surprised when he immediately brought it down to my office and said, "Do this. It needs to be done immediately." I pretended to complain, but this is a huge task, and I was planning to leave town for the holidays. "I don't care. This is urgent," he snapped. Of course, he couldn't verify it with the real senior partner, since the man had already left the office the day before. He thought he had just ruined my Christmas. What he didn't know was that I had written a research paper on this exact topic back in my 3rd year of law school. All I had to do was dig up my old floppy disk, make a few edits, and print it out. In less than 30 minutes, I had a flawless legal memo ready to go. While he believed I was buried in research, I was actually enjoying my holiday. On the first day back at work after the break, he walked into my office looking smug, dressed in a sharp suit with a perfectly knotted tie. "Where's the memo?" he asked. I handed him the thick document filled with complex legal jargon. He took it, feeling the weight of the pages, and smiled in satisfaction. He thought he was about to receive praise. But just a few hours later, the storm hit. Shouting echoed down the hallway. "Are you kidding me?" It was the voice of the senior partner the memo had supposedly come from. My boss flinched, stammering in confusion. "I got this piece of crap from you. This memo is useless, absolutely useless." The partner threw the stack of papers onto his desk, looking at him as if he were a complete fool. He tried to explain, but the partner cut him off. "Do you have a brain? You wasted over 100 billable hours on this." At that moment, I was called into the office. "Did you write this memo?" the partner asked. I picked it up, flipped through a few pages, and replied, "Yes, I wrote it under my boss's directive." I deliberately emphasized the word boss. "Where's your name?" The original had my name, but when I submitted it to my boss, it was removed. The partner's face turned red with anger. "He deleted your name." He turned to glare at my boss. "You're a disgrace." My boss stammered, unable to come up with an explanation. I walked out of the office, leaving him to face the wrath of his superior. He wasn't fired, but his career took a nosedive. From that day on, I sent all my memos directly to the partners, preventing him from ever stealing my work again. His reputation was permanently damaged, and people in the firm started looking at him with disdain. As for me, I received a compensation bonus for the holiday I was supposedly forced to sacrifice, and most importantly, I reclaimed justice in the way a real lawyer should, with intelligence, not endurance. Sometimes, justice doesn't come from the courtroom, it comes from the perfect plan. I think this was a masterfully planned and well-executed comeback. The awful boss thought he could keep stealing credit without consequences, but in the end, he walked straight into his own downfall. The protagonist not only reclaimed justice, but also exposed the villain in a way that left no room for excuses. A truly satisfying story and a valuable lesson for those who love to take advantage of others. Haha, what do you think? Leave a comment below. After this video, if you enjoyed the content, please leave a comment below and subscribe to my channel for more Reddit stories. Thank you.